Imagine if in your country 1/4 of the population was wiped out in the space of 4 years. That's what we're looking at here. We are now at Tuol, Sleng, which is the Genocide Museum here in Phnom Penh, and it's the former office of the Khmer Rouge. The country was known as Cambodia Democratic during that time period of 1975 to 1979. Depiction of more of the torture techniques, cutting off of fingers, waterboarding. The Khmer Rouge were apparently noted for their meticulous record keeping. We've arrived at the Choeung Ek Genocidal Center, only some 35 kilometers outside of Phnom Penh. This is one of the major displays of the killing fields. The killing fields, of course, were not just one place. There were many around Cambodia during the Pol Pot regime, but this is one of the major displays. Unfortunately, after the genocide, what do people do? They take tours. What else can I say? Here is the central monument to the victims of the killing fields. If there's one thing that summarizes the whole situation, is that during the Pol Pot communist regime from 1975 to 1979, approximately 2 million people out of a population of 8 million were executed in the killing fields. Imagine if in your country 1/4 of the population was wiped out in the space of 4 years. That's what we're looking at here. Looking inside, I can see skulls, just plain skulls.
The Khmer Rouge regime arrested and eventually executed almost everyone suspected of connections with the former government or with foreign governments, as well as professionals and intellectuals. Ethnic Vietnamese, ethnic Thai, ethnic Chinese, except for those already prominent among the Khmer Rouge themselves, ethnic Chams, the Muslim Cambodians, Cambodian Christians, and the Buddhist monkhood were the demographic targets of persecution. As a result, Pol Pot is sometimes described as the Hitler of Cambodia and a genocidal tyrant.
An actual killing field. Pol Pot slogan: "It's better to kill an innocent than to spare a guilty by mistake." He had many slogans, all of which served his purpose. a mass grave of 166 Khmer soldiers who were found headless and who came from the Eastern Zone and were suspected of being traitors. The Eastern Zone being towards Vietnam. Among the tragedy here is beauty. We're actually taking an audio tour, which gives quite a bit of detail. This is an area of agriculture, and during Pol Pot's regime, people were brought from the cities in an attempt to triple the rice production. That proved to be a total failure, since many of the people from the cities were totally inept at doing this kind of thing. Many of them starved in the process. What rice was produced was exported to China, while the workers starved. There's a cruel irony going on here. I see there's a fence separating these kids and families, and they're begging for money. Meanwhile, the tourist, that spoiled creature, moves on. This dike was built to keep out the waters during the rainy season. Hard to imagine that at this point. We are now at Tuol, Sleng, which is the Genocide Museum here in Phnom Penh, and it's the former office of the Khmer Rouge. The country was known as Cambodia Democratic during that time period of 1975 to 1979. It's a UNESCO plaque. United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization certifies the inscription of Tuol, Sleng Genocide Museum, Archive, Ministry of Culture and Fine Arts, Phnom Penh, Cambodia. I always have trouble spelling Phnom Penh, but if you remember the two H's, one H after the second letter, first word, and the H at the end, it becomes fairly simple, I think. Some regulations of the former prisoner camp of the Khmer Rouge. You must answer according to my question. Do not hide the facts. Don't be a fool, for you are a chap who dared to thwart the revolution. You must immediately answer my questions. Don't tell me either about your immoralities or the essence of the revolution. While getting lashes or electrification, you must not cry at all. Do not sit still and wait for my orders. Don't make pretexts about Kampuchea Kormin in order to hide your secret or traitor. If you follow all the rules, you shall get. If you don't follow the rules, you shall get my lashes or electric wire. If you obey any points of my regulation, you shall get either 10 lashes or 5 shocks of electrical discharge. Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum, the former Security Office 21 of the Democratic Kampuchea, was created on orders of Pol Pot in April the 17th, 1975. Office 21 was called S21 and designed for detention, interrogation, inhumane torture, and killing after confession from the detainees were received and documented. Here is the first photo we see of Pol Pot himself. Surprisingly, Pol Pot was a teacher trained in France, which makes it all the more surprising the actions he undertook. On the other hand, Hitler was an artist in Vienna who eventually, of course, did very much the same thing, if even on a greater scale. One of the main policies of Pol Pot was the expulsion of the population of the urban centers of big cities into the country to achieve what I mentioned earlier, to increase the rice harvest threefold. That proved to be a disaster, as these people were not equipped to do that. These images testify of the fact that politics can be extremely divisive and extremely cruel, which it continues to be to this very day. The Khmer Rouge were apparently noted for their meticulous record keeping. Good for them. Apparently they were hung by the back of their hands from these beams that used to be part of the swings here when it was a public school, and then their heads were dipped in feces. Individual blocks where prisoners were chained down. Some of the somber images here. Not that a reminder is necessary. This was not a recreation center, even though it was a former primary school. That was the original purpose of the building. Depiction of more of the torture techniques, cutting off of fingers, waterboarding. This one speaks for itself. Water torture. Yikes. It's amazing how cruel people can be.